This series of messages is on, how do we live our eternal life? Whenever I reflect on that question, I think of my guru, my spiritual teacher, beginning meditation with us by saying, open your heart and your mind to the infinite. Expand your consciousness, be aware of what you are. So today, along those lines, I want to look at what karma is and what karma has to do with living our eternal life. See if we can look at it practically, what we can learn that can be supportive of living skillfully every day. I saw a quote from the Christian Bible, Gospel of John, 4th chapter, 35th verse, that said, "Open your eyes and look at the fields. They are ripe for harvest." It's a good karma quote. Open your eyes and look at the fields. They are ripe for harvest. And karma can be mysterious. But I think perhaps the most mysterious thing about karma is that it is a fundamental law of life. It's a key to our happiness and our freedom, yet we don't pay much attention to it. We tend to look at enlightenment, our spiritual journey, I think, in terms of its goal for liberation of consciousness, freedom from sorrow and suffering. Yet, in that trajectory, I think it's common to overlook the role of karma and the necessity for understanding how it works. So when we do that, we miss karma's relevance to us for living an awakened life, and we undermine our capacity to actually change our karma, the trajectory of our karma, and improve our life in the process. So most of us know karma is simply the law of cause and effect. As you sow, so shall you reap. What goes around comes around. It's a basic law, a fundamental spiritual law. It's the one that underlies that teaching that we find across the board in all religious traditions, which is the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have done unto you. And not only is it a golden rule for how to treat others, but it is a metaphysical law, a metaphysical truth, meaning that what we do to others, we actually do to ourselves. Because with spiritual awakening, we understand that there is no other, that life is simply this seamless whole, this one reality in expression, this one life of God continually expressing itself. Life is a seamless unity. So we can't harm another without harming ourselves in the moment and in the future. Just a little bit of understanding of this principle, you think, would bring a lot more peace and kindness to our world. Wouldn't it? The Buddha, sayings of the Buddha from the Dhammapada, said, "Speak or act with an impure mind, and trouble will follow you, as the wheel follows the ox that drives the cart." Then the flip side of that feels more helpful and promising. "Speak or act with a pure mind, and happiness will follow you as your shadow, unshakable." So even though I think the teaching of karma is universal and its effects are fairly obvious, we often don't see how it works. Why? Well, because the mechanism of karma is subtle. So it's not always obvious to us. The law of nature shows us that, every action brings an inherent reaction. But the potency of karma in our lives is primarily a mental process. And so there's often also a time delay in its fruition. So there's a lot for us to keep track of and to be aware of. We don't see it unless we fully understand how it's formed and how we can look for it. To understand how karma works, it's necessary for us to understand how the mind works, because it is primarily the force of intention or volition behind our thoughts and our speech and our action that determines karmic potency. That's really important. So it's less the thing, the action, and more the intentionality, the motive behind it that provides the potency that leaves a residue in the mental field. We call it a seed that will come to fruition at some future time. So the motive behind our speech and our actions is the seed that we plant in correspondence, and it will come to fruition in correspondence with its kind. So that's what the Buddha was saying. Have a peaceful mind, a compassionate heart, and that will come back to you. So it's not what we do so much as what motivates our action. These intentions or motivations, along with our memories, our perceptions, our experiences, all of these impressions are stored in the subconscious mind, in the mental field as imprints, and what in Sanskrit is called samskaras, which means imprints. They are the seeds of karma that are planted in the garden of our mind and consciousness. My teacher, Roy Eugene Davis, wrote, samskaras, or mental impressions, result from our thoughts, our feelings, beliefs, attitudes, and opinions, even if those opinions are given to us by somebody else. If we take them in, they become a samskara. The whole system is recorded on the subconscious level of mind. Unless we are self-realized, we tend to move according to the compulsions of our self-conscious urgings. I'm going to repeat that one. Unless we are self-realized, we tend to move according to the compulsions of our self-conscious urgings. I was thinking, wow, this is the original self-driving car. It's us. Then he says, for most people, karma is what drives them through life. Yikes. He writes, we decide and then forget what we decided. We dream and then forget that we dreamt. Most of us live our lives as though in a dream, and yet we say we are conscious. So then I want to add, even though we know how karma works, we sometimes forget. We forget that seamless nature of life, and we think that our thoughts and our feelings, our speech and our action are somehow operating in isolation. But that is never the case. It's never the case. You see how impactful this whole topic is? Makes us want to sit down and be really quiet. I was reminded of this issue about karma and being mindfully aware of or motives or thoughts or feelings or intentions that are all the time being recorded in the mental field. I was reminded of this one a while ago. I was really challenged by someone I really thought had betrayed me. And I was upset by what he did. And so I was talking to another friend about it. And after listening to my story, my friend said to me, well, you should get straight with him now, because if you don't, you'll meet him again. And in my upset, I had forgotten this very basic law of karma, this very basic karmic principle. And he didn't necessarily mean that I would meet that person again. He meant, he was pointing out ever so gently, that the upset was mine. And I needed to clear it up so that I wasn't planting seeds of anger and resentment, so that I wasn't planting the seeds of my own unhappiness. Because I was making myself unhappy in the moment, and at the same time, running the risk of planting a very powerful seed for my future unhappiness. So to understand karma, we have to recognize both. What we're doing in the moment, in particular with what consciousness we're doing it, and how that potentially affects the trajectory of our future. So one of the challenges of karma, of understanding karma, is that life in this realm, you might have noticed, is occurring in an interactive field of expression. You know, video games have nothing on our mind and consciousness, right? Karmic impressions from the past are always coming to fruition and must be dealt with while we are simultaneously creating new karmic impressions in that moment. This is happening all the time. Are you holding your breath? So we must respond skillfully to those karmic seeds that are ripening from our past and refrain from creating any new negative imprints that will later come to fruition. So it didn't escape me that this little dance that I had with betrayal reminded me of something, guess what, that happened before. And fortunately, through the grace of God, and the grace of the gurus, the grace of my own practice, there was an interruption this time that said, oh, don't go down that road. Wake up, wake up. Don't go down that road. Waking up on the spiritual path, I want to say, is really, recognizing what we are as spiritual beings. It's not the end of the path, but the beginning of it. So we wake up, we remember what we are as spiritual beings, and then we get to clear up our karma. And while we're at it, not create new negative karma. That's the deal. That's how it works. And karma, just to keep it really interesting, operates on 3 basic levels. So there's the new karma, which is the present experiences that we're having, the interactions, and the intentions that color our current perceptions that are in real time getting stored in the chitta, in the subconscious mind, in the mental field. So the karma we're creating in the moment, what's getting stored from our present time experience. That's new karma that will come to fruition at a certain point in time. And I want to say, it's really helpful to know that karma is not necessarily negative. That's really the good news about it. I mean, we can plant seeds of happiness in the moment and for the future. We can plant seeds of peace in the moment and for the future. But in order to do that, we have to be awake. We have to be aware of what our intentions are, what's driving us. You know, is it just the past karma that's coming up and we're reacting to it and superimposing it on what's going on in the present? That's not going to be helpful. So we have to be awake as we're walking through this interactive field of life. So there's new karma being created. Then there's that past karma that's activated by current conditions and past desires and impressions, experiences, beliefs, feelings. It's now coming to fruition. So somebody else shows up and betrays you. But it's an old betrayal. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, so past karma being activated, having a chance to come forward by current conditions. And then the third type of karma is dormant karma. Those seeds that are there but are yet to ripen because the conditions are not optimum for them. But when conditions are ripe, unless those seeds are burned through the experience of superconscious meditation, those seeds will come to fruition when the time is right. So 3 kinds of karma. Let's go back to life is an interactive field of expression. So I'm thinking about this and I think, wow, it's like walking through a blooming field that you planted in the past where things are just popping up and blooming all around you. And you're watching this as you move through the field. And at the same time, planting more seeds as we react or respond to what's coming up. That's really awesome. We have to learn how to pay attention to be skillful. I watch my little backyard veggie garden with an eye to karma lessons. Just a tiny little garden. It's always teaching me something. How to love a squirrel. Who seems to appear as my nemesis annually. There's what I know I planted in the garden, and depending on, the strength of the seeds, my skill in planting it, the weather, the soil conditions, I will have a certain harvest. I also have what the squirrels plant, or what they dig up, or what the birds plant, or what they eat up. And I also have a mystery crop that comes up annually, something that takes me a while to recognize what it is. And it's been a great joy for me that one of the things in the last couple of years that has come up annually and actually flowered and come to fruition is delicata squash, which is my favorite. I'm like, wow, this is a gift of divine grace. I have no idea how that got there. But like a long dormant samskara, when I looked into how it has shown up in more than one season, I discerned that those seeds have been living through the composting process. So, at the end of the year, we put the compost in that soil. Those seeds have made it through the compost. So from my kitchen compost comes a new crop. Now, what I want to say about this and why I'm sharing it with you is what I thought I tossed out, what I thought I was done with, was actually the cause of what came up in my garden. But it took some discerning to kind of ferret that out. So, how do we find freedom in this wild adventure of life in this interactive field? So, there's a lot of ways, I'm sure, but I have a list of 4 things to remember. At the top of the list is we are spiritual beings. And as spiritual beings, what we are is superior to mind. We have the capacity to observe the mind and to discern and to set new, clear intentions. We have that power as spiritual beings. So first and foremost, it's helpful to remember that we are not victims of karma. We don't need to be, because we are supreme consciousness itself, more powerful than the mind. So because we have that witnessing ability, we can choose freedom in the moment. We can choose freedom to respond with love, with compassion, with peace, rather than react. Because it is the reactive nature that wants what it wants, that is compelled by desire, that plants the new seed. So, when we respond instead with love, with compassion, with kindness, we are still planting a seed, but it is a seed of like, of peace, of compassion, of kindness. And we give it to ourselves in the moment, and we give it to ourselves in the future. It's really nice. So, second on my list is that the choice contributes to happiness in the moment and in the future for us and for others. So know you're a spiritual being. You can respond rather than react, and your ability to respond can contribute to happiness in the moment and in the future. And what we give to others, we give to ourselves. There's no separation. Okay, third thing, what's arising now has a past cause. So, be cool. Stay calm. It'll pass. Be objective. Be, as my teacher would say, compassionately curious. Where did that delicata squash come from? It's a miracle. No, it's the compost. You put it there yourself. Right? And be aware of your present experiences without grasping, without aversion. Stay calm and cool. And what will help with that is the 4th thing on my list: meditate every day. Because the regular practice of superconscious meditation lights up the mind, helps us be more discerning, and it also has the ability to fry those seeds of past negative karma so that they will not come to fruition. And I want to conclude with a quote by Paramahansa Yogananda explaining this. He said, "Since all effects or seeds of our past actions, our karma, can be destroyed by roasting them in the fire of meditation, concentration, the light of superconsciousness, and right actions, there is no such thing as fate. You make your own destiny. God has given you independence, and you are free to shut out his power or let it in." And one more just lovely, a nice summation, I think, to our message on karma for the day is attributed to motivational writer William Arthur Ward, who wrote, "Judge each day not by the harvest you reap, but by the seeds you plant." Om.